Welcome to Explorations. Today we're speaking with Sam Magill. Sam is an old friend who's a photographer, a poet, a philosopher, a coach, and a coach supervisor, and has made a living of experiencing life firsthand and using stories and images to support leaders and coaches in their own journeys. In this third of a four-part interview, we explore what it means to become embroiled in a client's story and what we can learn from the painter George Seurat about creating distance in our professional relationships. So let's get to it. I'm thinking of poetry has its own structure, and you set up, in a sense, certain fences around the way you're going to write a poem in terms of, the rhyming, and sometimes it's free form, but sometimes it has a haiku has got a very strict structure, for example. Mm-hmm. Is it 5-7-5 in terms of syllables or whatever? And it sounds like what you're talking about is what kind of fences do we create around the stories we're exploring with our clients as coaches?
That's right.
And that there are limits and boundaries.
That's right. That's right.
You've talked about being embroiled in a story with a client in some of our previous conversations. Is that what does it mean to become embroiled? I'm thinking of it. It feels like I just was up in the kitchen eating lunch. I'm thinking of my broiler in my stove, which is not a place I'd want to hang out, especially at 500 degrees. But maybe the consequences of being embroiled in a story with your client are comparable. Tell me a little more about that.
Yeah, you get burned. You get cooked.
Or at least crispy on the edges.
Yeah, exactly.
What do you mean by that when you say that?
When I say embroiled with a client, I mean that we've lost our distinctions. We've lost our boundaries. We've become so fond of our client or them of us that we start operating as friends. And as much as coaching is an amicable relationship for the most part, sometimes we need to be kind of blunt and challenging. But if we get lost, we kind of smush ourselves together. And then we're embroiled. Entangled might be a better word, actually. When I can no longer see you, my client, and can no longer distinguish me, it doesn't lead to good work. It doesn't lead to good work. We need it. It's part of the paradox that we're at once close, but not merged. Mm-hmm. I have to be able to stand back. Let's talk about George Seurat and Pointillism. If you look at a Serra painting and you get right up close to it, he was experimenting with pinpoints of color and light. If you get right up, that's all you see is pinpoints. If you step back, you can see the image. And so I need to move up close, but I can get enmeshed there. I need to move back some of the time to see what the image really is. What does it all add up to right here?
Mm.
Yeah.
There's a concept that I write about, and it's about having distance from our own life story. And when we're, in a sense, enmeshed, embroiled, entangled in our own life story, we have no perspective. Mm-hmm. So we have to have some sense of distance And there's a wonderful story of they call it the Solomon dilemma. And Solomon was known to, he was probably the first coach, the biblical coach. People went to him for his advice, and he had such great wisdom and insight. But his own life was a mess, personally, and the government was a mess. He was not capable of providing perspective to himself in those realms. He could do it for others. And so I'm thinking that, our clients who are coached or are being coached, they too are enmeshed and embroiled in their story, so much so they can't see it. All they can see is the points of light. They can't see the patterns. And the real value of a coach is someone who's not in that story. They're standing on the other side of the street looking at it. They can see what's happening in the whole panorama of that situation.
That's right.
And whereas that person is so focused, all they can see is that one little part of what's going on. Interesting.
That's right.
Does coaching? What are some of the other limits of coaching? You've alluded to the fact that coaching can't do everything. And you once told me the story of a client who was terribly anxious. I wonder if you would be willing to share that and create some context for thinking about the kinds of limitations of the limited focus, foci that coaching has.
Well, the one that keeps in mind, and tell me if you're recalling something different from this. Mm-hmm. I was working with a coach who is a very good health and wellness coach. And this coach's client had some problems with nutrition. And the coach came to me and said, I'm really getting frustrated with my client because she's not making any progress. Oh, that's interesting. Huh. I know you're a really good coach, but so let's see what's going on here. And I said, well, what's your own story about food and nutrition? And she said, well, my mother always cooked fresh food, fresh vegetables, balanced diet. Food was really important. We talked about it a lot, blah, blah, blah. I said, interesting. I said, what is your client's story about nutrition and food from her family? Oh, I have no idea. So you've been coaching out of your history, not the client's history. Mm. Yeah, you've got a good set of action items, action plan for the client to eat so many cups of carrots a week or what have you. And I said, the problem is you cannot eat carrots for your client. She has to eat them herself. So for me, that's an illustration of the limits of coaching, that coaching has to occur in the context of the person living out the action plan, not in the belief system, the values, the habits, the history of the coach. It's a real limit. We would like to fix our clients, many of us, come on, just eat those carrots, shape up your diet. But we can't. We can't eat the carrots for our client. Maybe that's the biggest limitation of all.
But we can help them explore their story about why they're not eating their carrots.
Tell me about carrots.
Yeah. What if carrots meant for you in your life? And now we're moving into the realm of meaning and relevance, I guess.
Exactly. Here's my granddaughter's story about carrots. We built a snowman the other day, And she insisted that the nose be a carrot. And she ran into the house, and her big brother helped her find a carrot. And they came out and stabbed it into the snowman's head. They were so pleased with themselves. The next day, when they were going home, this 3-year-old ran out into the backyard. We're trying to herd her into the car. She ran out to the backyard, grabbed the carrot, and took a big chomp out of it and then put it back. Nobody could have scripted that. Yeah. That's her story about carrots.
But Mr. Snowman, what did he feel? God.
He just had a nose job.
But snowmen are relatively forgiving folk. You know, that's my experience.
Yeah, they tend to be. Yeah. All their problems melt away.
That's right.